Hey folks, Coach Jeremy from Precision Nutrition here, and today we are going to tackle 5 questions that every nutrition coach is going to have to answer at some point in their career. So this is something that might sound a little controversial, but the best coaches typically remain fairly neutral when it comes to selecting the best diet. Even the question itself, the idea of one best diet would assume that all humans are the same. And as we know, there's a lot of variability in between individuals. So the best diet for one person or for one population may not apply across the board as generally. Things that we should consider would be ethnic background, people's preferences, and what they have available to them in their current environment. Keep in mind, most diets actually have quite a bit in common. What we would look for here is what are the things that we know to be highlights of good nutrition and bring those to the forefront. When you're considering giving dietary advice, as a coach, it's also best to remove yourself from the equation and not to give dietary advice based on things that you would or would not personally do to the person who's sitting across from you. And at the end of the day, consider that there is no one best diet. Chasing after six-pack abs is one of those questions that we get a lot from folks who are inquiring about nutrition coaching or who want to work with a nutrition coach. And it is often a question that I meet with a little bit of skepticism because of the trade-offs involved with acquiring six-pack abs. For men, we're typically looking into the low teens to single-digit body fat, and for women, we're looking at the higher to mid-teens. And the trade-offs to get there can be significant. You're probably looking at strategies that involve some form of calorie counting. There is going to be a little bit more extensive training required than above and beyond what would be required for just basic health. You're also probably looking at things like making some social trade-offs. So certain activities that you would like to participate in may not be on the table anymore. Consider things like later nights, going out with friends, grabbing drinks. These are trade-offs that may be required in order to see visible abs. As a coach, I can certainly show people how to walk the path and detail the steps required to get there. It is really a question of, is it worth it for that individual, and if they want to walk that path. That's something they have to decide for themselves. For folks who often get to that point where their body fat is low enough to see visible ab definition, it is often in a moment where they have to really ask themselves, is this something that I want to participate in long term? Is this a goal that I want to hit and just say, hey, I did it, check the box and move on? But consider that behaviors that you have to engage in to get there, you're probably going to have to continue to engage in those long term if you want to hold on to that definition. It's really a trade-off that you have to ask yourself if you're willing to make. Carb restriction or cutting out carbs entirely is often a question that we get as nutrition coaches. And it's one that I often answer with more questions. Do you feel better when you cut out carbs? Do you feel like you were able to maintain a level of control a little bit better when you cut down carbs? Are there food sources that you couldn't go without that are carb-based? Answering those questions typically helps folks understand if they should cut out carbs or if it's a path that they want to try. As coaches, it's not our job to tell people what they can and cannot do, but we should be able to educate them on what are the pros and cons and help to maybe illuminate some of those ideas before they go down a path as restrictive as cutting out all carbs. Sleep and stress management are often very overlooked when it comes to nutrition coaching, specifically because there's no caloric allotment for sleep or stress management. We often don't think of them as being as intertwined to the nutrition coaching process. Consider that someone who is sleep deprived and who is not in a recovered state will likely have a harder time prioritizing their own nutrition and making those choices that help them hit their caloric needs. Someone who is chronically sleep deprived will probably have stronger cravings, be less able to deal with their hunger cues, and make poorer choices in the moment, as opposed to be able to focus on long-term planning that would help them hit their caloric needs and then hit the body composition goals that they're looking at. It is much harder to go to the grocery store or to meal prep or to avoid hitting up the local fast food joint when you're really fatigued. If you're not sleeping and recovering properly, all the other activities that you need to engage in for your health become much harder to handle. Some strategies that you might want to try to improve your sleep might look like creating a nighttime ritual to help have a rhythm towards your evening, preparing your body for sleep. Preparing your environment for sleep may look like lowering lights and keeping your room at a cooler temperature. Other things may be avoiding alcohol and caffeine later in the day, and then choosing de-stressing activities before bed, all activities that can promote a better night's sleep. Some additional activities that you might engage in to help increase your stress tolerance or reduce your stress load may look like yoga or engaging in a deep breathing practice, spending more time with nature, or spending more time with your pets. When it comes to clients asking the question about supplementation, I often try and think about what are the big block behaviors that we're participating in before we have the conversation about supplementation. So are they moving well? Are they eating in amounts that are satisfying to them? Are they recovering well? Are they sleeping well? If they've covered those bases, then we can have the conversation about supplementation. When it comes to supplementation, there are a few criteria that I like to consider. So one, what is the cost of the supplement? What is the body of evidence behind it? And then what nutritional gap does it fill for the person? So things like creatine, where it has a large body of evidence, has a very low cost, and it is very well studied for having a host of benefits, that is something that is easier to recommend to clients. Other things that we would look at would be supplements like fish oil pills, multivitamins, and a protein supplement, things that have more of a broad spectrum and apply across several different areas and fill multiple gaps. Those are supplements that I tend to go to first when working with clients. It's also worth considering that for some supplementation, you may not notice an immediate physical benefit for a supplement, even though it has a good body of evidence for a host of benefits. A good example would be a fish oil pill. We know that it has good brain and heart health benefits, but by taking it, I may not notice that my heart is beating differently, and I may not notice that my thought patterns are different. That is something worth considering, and think of it as more hedging your bets from a nutrition standpoint to avoid future disease. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and if there's any other topics that you want us to cover, please let us know in the comments below.
You can pick her up if you want.
I do want so much. Come here, baby girl. I'm gonna make you a star. Oh God, don't be on me.
She's so sad.
I'm holding her like a football right now. Cool. Some additional activities that you might engage in to help increase stress tolerance or reduce stress load might be yoga or a deep breathing practice, hanging out in nature, or...
You can put her down.
Do I have to put her down is the question.